What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another stream. Some postseason coverage we got coming to you. Giving a few looks at different aspects of the league. Looking back, looking ahead, ultimately seeing what the UFL has in store, and for us fans, what we can expect to benefit from. What's up, everybody? Oh my gosh! To another stream. Some postseason coverage. So, looking in ahead, we do have our games on Sunday, so we got a few more streams ahead of us, two or three, till we get to then. But ultimately, a lot will be said this weekend about the league, and a lot was said in Week 10. Looking at the scores here, 20 to 16, 26 to 13, 29 to 23, 42 to 27. Some struggles, certainly some struggles, and for some of the teams they had high hopes, like the Stallions, like the Aviators, and the Battlehawks, I would say, going into Week 10. But ultimately, it wasn't consistent. We didn't have as many performances as we'd like to see, but where I wanted to start today was kind of looking at some of our cut-up highlight footage for Week 10 and just as a final testament to the final week of the season and all the teams that we won't see this week in the playoffs. Because the players that put in all that effort, they deserve at least one final look. So we'll take a look at some footage, but before we get in there, I'll just say make sure you're liking, subscribing, following, as well as got those notifications on so you can join us when we do go live. That way you can participate in the discussion. But starting off, we'll look at our best interceptions out of Week 10. Are you ready? So right off rip here, I believe Jason Bean and an interception. There was a reason that Jason Bean was traded, but ultimately that Storm's defense, whatever quarterback's plan is, they've been swarmed. Now this is, I think, the most embarrassing for Jason Bean. I mean, maybe you don't see the corner coming down or the safety coming down, but that's a bad look. That is definitely a bad look. But the fact of the matter is, the Storm are a good team. So the fact they're getting interceptions is less a testament to the offense and more to the defense. And then here, Morton throws his interception. Morton's still kind of new to the offense. But the fact this was 13 seconds into the game made it a little crazy. So there was some excitement with that. Here we go, Plummer, which it wasn't even Plummer throwing the pass. It was actually Hunter Deckers who pitches it, I believe, to Moreno Cropper, who then gives it a pitch. Doesn't exactly work out. Then this one, I believe, is John Reese Plumley. And the Stallions didn't get too many interceptions this year, so getting one in Week 10 is ultimately exciting, and a little pick six action is always exciting as well. And then one thing I'd like to see, or would be interesting to see, for those that recall across the NFL, there was a partnership for a pick six promotion where you could go, I think it was Applebee's or a few different restaurants, and get yourself, a 6-piece boneless wing or something like that. Maybe that's something the UFL picks up as these sponsorships start to pick up for the league. It's been a good year, first and foremost. But then looking at this interception, that was Perez's first interception. Perez's second interception here. Jump ball, that's kind of on the wide receiver to go and get it. You got to moss them in that situation, and that's really what your job is. And that's more a failure of the receiver than anything else. So all in all, our interceptions more a testament to what we've seen out of that defensive performance. They've really carried the league so far this year, and that's only what will probably be the case for the UFL moving forward. There's a lot of defensive players trying to get their shot, changing positions, and there's a lot more. I'm not going to say talent on the defensive side of the ball, but there's a lot more. There's many more bodies on the defensive side of the ball, which does make a difference, especially when you get deep into the season, 10 weeks. So here we go. Here goes Reed. I believe this one. Okay, this is, I think, to Butler. Yup. Butler's touchdown here. And really, the Renegades, their whole offense all season has been determined by their passing game. And I think this one was Vaughn's. So the fact that, Reed was out there throwing the ball well, that really, was the story of this game and why they did end up winning. Then Perez gets one here, which I believe is a pass to the running back. And then another one for Reed. This one I think is Butler as well. Yep, Butler gets his second one of the game. Really, the passing game, it looked like the first 3 weeks for him. Then we give it to the Gamblers. Gamblers get a rushing touchdown. Seems Major was the one that run it in, and ultimately kind of an exciting game. And then here's one, John Reese Plumlee taking it in himself. Pretty good performance out of Plumlee. New to the offense, really, the team looked good, and I think Plumlee might have a future in the UFL, especially as these rosters kind of consolidate over the offseason. This one's the pick six off Plumlee. So while he can put it in, he is a little sloppy with his throws at times, of course. Then our next play should be another Gambler's touchdown, which I believe is a pass. Oh, another rush. Is this one Majors as well? Let's see here. All in all, the Gamblers came to play these last few weeks. Yep, it was Major. So ultimately, Gamblers look good. And, they've got talent, and they really started to come together these last 3 to 4 weeks. Then we got DTR with a pass, and I believe this one is to McGowan, so relatively unknown in the offense, but did rise up in the last week because you lost. A lot of your players get injured throughout the weeks. It's a long season. It's only 10 weeks, but it's long. Here's Bean. This is his pick six, I believe. Yep. Unfortunate for Bean. Came into the season, even last season, was really a favorite of the fan base, and a lot of people were expecting very big things out of Bean, and that just really is not how it ended up playing out, unfortunately. But, there's hope for, I think, the player. Then Plummer here, great pass. Expect to see more of this weekend and throughout the playoffs. Plummer is playing at an MVP level, and I'd be amazed if he doesn't make his way to the NFL this offseason. And what's this? Nope. This is Jackson, I believe. Jackson, I'm surprised, was not an MVP finalist. Oh, this is Valladay, actually. Valladay, really good performance this season. As kind of that backup, really has started to earn some reps, and I think odds are may get traded this offseason, but is a strong asset for the defenders. Then we got Jack Plummer. Who we got catching this one? Let's see here. Ended up being Camper, another relative unknown. So we did start to see some of the starters get rested in week 10. So some people did get more opportunities than was previously expecting. And then Briley Moore here, really good performance in week 10, and I think will perform this week in the playoffs as well as in the future in spring football, and has really kind of stepped in to be a good performer for the team. And then Morton, this is his pick six. Couple pick sixes in week 10. Maybe that's a result of all the player switches in, but ultimately kind of a surprise on just the amount of pick sixes you see. There's only 4 games, and we've seen 2 already. Here goes Morton. I think this is a pass. Yeah. Lays it up. I think Lucky by chance. Nope. Kiki. Mr. Chisholm got himself his tud. Pretty good performance, I would say, out of all of the wide receivers, especially on the teams that aren't making it in the playoffs. This was, for some of these players, the last chance for them to get on the field and put on some tape. And they made the opportunity of it. And then Rogers got in and then ended up coming out, I think, after the first quarter. And then their backup, who would have been like really the third string at the start of the season, because DeLillo was not the backup that came in, I think did get some reps throughout the game. But ultimately, what do we have here? Morton. not even Morton. I think Morton when he went out. I think that was McClendon. But Toa gets his tud, and I think that may have been one of his first, or he did not get as many tuds this season as he did throughout the last few seasons, which is unfortunate. Um, then we've got, I think this is Lucky getting his tud. Nope, Winstead, Isaiah getting his. Really, really good performance out of the wide receiver core for the Kings, and especially when you think about all the different, they had 3 different quarterbacks play, and yet their passing game was still prolific. The game was closer than I think they would have liked, but at the same time, there's hope for the Kings going into the playoffs. The team has really came together, and I think that's more a testament of coaching than anything else. But ultimately, I am excited for them. And then Jaden Sheridan gets his the last touchdown of the 2026 UFL season, which you got to think that is an honor, at least, for the regular season. Then we got 10 plays, kind of some top 10. So this 4-point field goal, so last one of the regular season. Really impressive showing out of the Aviators. Their kicking core has been questionable throughout the season. This catch to Butler, really good. Kind of brings it in with one hand. And second touchdown of the day. We've seen this a few times, or second time now. Then this is John Plumlee's pick six. Good play. We'll probably see the other pick six in here as well, because you don't see those often. But we did see 2 in week 10. I'll say it again, I think that is a result of all the changeover in talent that we saw. Then Reed with a really good pass to to Vaughn. And what do we got here? This is storm play. Oh no, this is the punt block, which was a safety for 2 points. Pretty good testament, and honestly, just a result of this defense on the Orlando Storm. Really impressive showing this season, and I expect it to continue. And then this is Morton's pick 6 at the number 5 spot. Then it's sitting in our 6th spot, our 4th spot. We've got Plummer's pass to what I believe is Camper for the touchdown, which was more this play and the ranking here is really a testament to the player. That's what you do as the quarterback. You get your guy the ball and then let them make a play, and that's exactly what happened. Here's the 3rd pick 6 of the week, which is Jason Beans. A lot of pick 6s in week 10. Unfortunately, a lot of them were against some of our teams that have had a kind of tough latter half of the season. Then in our 2 spot, this is Major's what seems to be 70-yard touchdown run, which is really good performance. And it's unfortunate, talent like Major, we'll probably see him back next season, but really only arisen in the last 2 weeks. And, that performance, I'm not going to say it won't get you to the league, but it may not. And then here we go. This is the backup out of the Kings with a nice touchdown pass. 60-yard pass, not touchdown. Would set up a touchdown. Winstead, though, really has arisen to be kind of that number 1 receiver for the Kings. Good performance all in all. Then our last batch is some highlight reel. These are really our top catches. So this is Plummer. And this is going to be that Camper touchdown. Again, testament of the player. Really put on a performance. That's what you do as a quarterback. Get the ball to your guy, let him make a play. That's what happened. That's really what you expect too. So as far as you're concerned, it worked out for you. Looking at the Aviators, Morton's touchdown pass, pretty good performance to Kiki. Kiki kind of been that number 1 receiver throughout most of the season, but the offense has struggled on the Aviators throughout 2026. We'll see how it changes in 2027, especially when it comes to coaching. And then here is touchdown to Winstead. Winstead really kind of expect more of this season. He's done well, and I bet will continue to do well. The next, this is that 60-yard pass with some holding potentially. Winstead, though, great performance, all in all. Really, arguably one of the best receivers on the team. DTR gets this pass out to McGowan. Stepping in, Stallions were kind of running out of players at the end of the season. But great performance out of McGowan. Week 10, put some tape on, get some tape. And then Vaughn gets his touchdown. This is really, what you can expect. Vaughn's really has done well. May get himself back to the league. Unsure of that at this time. And then I believe this is the Roland touchdown. Really good performance. Jack Plummer's been good. Every game he plays in, he's been very good. And we got Perez. Whatever even is this coverage. But Butler down. This is about a 50-yarder. As I said, every week Butler gets the catch. Or, he gets the catch. He's going for 40 yards, if not more. That's the type of performer that he is. He gets that ball. He takes advantage of it. And honestly, you can't expect much less than that. Good performance all in all out of Butler this season. This is Emmanuel Butler's catch. Doing well is also. Then for our next top catch, that was our last one actually. Then we got some mic'd up action. We'll skip out on that. Let's see if we can give it a listen.
Kosei! Let's go, baby.
Yeah, coach.
Great job, dude. Great job. That was awesome. I'm going to give you one more in the second half, all right?
All right.
Give that first drive?
Yep.
All right. Keep balling, bro. Keep balling.
Relatively poor, but I would like to see some lip readings on the UFL season. But then another look, we'll kind of get into the all UFL team this season, which was released yesterday. I'm not going to say there was a lot of shocks, but let's get into the offense. So first and foremost, quarterback, this was really going to come down to Tamu or Plummer. Plummer, I would argue, almost more deserving. When it comes to, performance with the team, all around performance, Plummer really has been a stable ship throughout this offseason. Then when it comes to running back position, that's going to be Deion Jackson. I think this was well accepted. Though McFarland was kind of ahead for some of the season when it comes to yardage, Deion Jackson, performance-wise, was really the mainstay when it comes to the running back room across the league. Then looking at our 3 wide receivers chosen for the all-UFL team, Tyler Vaughn's, of course, definitely deserved. Team may have suffered, but ultimately the best wide receiver on the Renegades and the key to that offensive performance was Vaughn. So I would say absolutely deserving. And especially with the performance in Week 10, I think that did help in the matter as well. And when it comes to these wide receiver selections, they're taken into consideration the entire season. So that's why we got Roland and Butler here. Butler, whether it was Frost, Perez, all of the quarterbacks for the Battlehawks really had a relationship with Butler and is the face of the franchise. So I think any list that, includes some of the best wide receivers across the league has got to have Butler on it. And then Roland brought in from DC because, wasn't protected, but ultimately was that main wide receiver. Badger, a little bit of a safety blanket for Plummer, but Roland, very consistent. And I believe when we look at the number of catches, kind of leading the league, or at least in the top 3 when it comes to that. And then for tight end, we've got Tyler Neville, who did quite well. I would have argued for Briley Moore here, but I can understand the selection. The tight ends were kind of either the ball was going to Butler or the ball was going to the tight ends for the Battlehawks. So I can understand why their tight end makes the list. And then when we get down to our offensive line, most shocking here is the Gamblers. The team suffered, but their offensive line really performed this season. And I think that's something they really should be proud of going into the offseason and even into next season. Because if you can retain that talent, there might be good things ahead for the Gamblers, especially, with the season ahead. We don't know exactly how. I imagine we'll see most teams back as we have them, but then we look at Polnick, I think, the center position out of the Battlehawks, and that was a little bit of a surprise because most of that offensive line talent did end up either retiring or going to the Storm after the move of Coach Becht and Coach Colombo. So good for them that they still were able to make it on there, but that's why we'll see Mr. Gonzalez as a guard. All in all, the offense really, really prolific. Then we get into our defensive performance. We've got Cam Gill, who really, really was quite a good performer this season. And then we got Carlos Davis at the defensive tackle position. Got his name called many times this season. Really was an offensive disruptor when it came to the center of that offensive line. Then Isaiah Buggs, the defensive tackle. Then we've got Derek Robertson, who ended up going or becoming a finalist for the MVP, which I do think was a little bit of a surprise, especially when it comes to that defense. Don't get me wrong, led the defense, but there were a lot of questions there on who might end up making it on the defensive side of the ball. My thoughts was it would be Tony Fields or potentially Pita, but neither of which made the list. And we got Tay Crowder at our linebacker position, really good, and a couple player of the weeks for him this season. Been a mainstay on that Stallions defense. And then Tizzino also at the linebacker position, really arguably some of probably the best duo in the league. And then you got Corey Mayfield, DJ Miller, and then Kerry Vincent in the cornerback position. I'd say that's pretty fair. I'm actually surprised there's not more Gamblers, but that is where we get Major Burns in the safety position. And Major Burns, I think, is really, kind of that main face on the Gamblers defense and has been a high level performer in spring football so far. Then looking at kind of what we've got ahead for our playoffs, Fox, this will be their final game coming up this week. They do get the night game, which generally tends to have a little higher, well, I'm not going to say viewership, but generally it tends to do well. So the Friday night game generally does well, but across the Fox games, we're sitting about 670,000 viewers, which is pretty good when you compare that to some other professional sports league, like the NHL. They're sitting at 600,000-ish on an average game, as well as what you'd see in some MLB games. Sometimes even less. So pretty good performance for our broadcast team. It's going to be like our Friday night football team. It'll be Kurt Menefee, Joe Klatt. Kind of our top or more well-respected broadcast teams. And then looking at our playoffs, it's going to come down to these two matchups. The Battlehawks versus the Kings, I think, is maybe the more interesting game just because we've seen, the Storm take on the Defenders 3 weeks in a row at this point. So I can understand why that night game may pull in a little more attention. But going back now to our all UFL team, we do have the special teams players, and I think there's a lot to be said about these players. Specifically Tanner Brown. I think Tanner Brown is this season's Jake Bates. Don't be surprised if he's the first one to get called up to the NFL. But I would not be surprised because he's had a very good performance. And then Chris Rowland getting on here, 2 all UFL teams as a kick returner. And I think that's where Rowland's performance really, really was understated going into the season. As a kick returner, got a lot of yards, a lot of good starts for his team, and I think there was a lot to be excited about. Then when you come down to the Battlehawks, they had a good team, especially when it comes down to like the punting side of things. One, you don't want to be punting all that often, but they were. So Sanborn did get himself a few attempts and ultimately some recognition on that front. Then we got Sean Fresh, the punt returner. A couple good performances out of him this season. And then Gary Jennings Jr. Really made his presence felt on the field. And then the league has also announced those MVP finalists. So we got Cam Gill on the defensive side. Kind of a shock, but not a shock. Did lead the league in sacks for most of the season and ultimately one of the most prolific defensive talents across the league. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Gill gets a shot this offseason. Derek Robertson as well may get a shot. Really good performance this season. Tamu injured. For when it comes down to the actual chances here for MVP, I think, we're probably sitting at 30% for Tamu, 15% for these two, and then Plummer's probably sitting 60% chance right now. I would say even 70. I'd be amazed if Plummer is not the MVP of the league. It's generally a quarterback award, but ultimately, more than likely, that's how it ends up going. But looking at our season and kind of how I think things will probably go, more than likely, this game could have some shocks in it, especially with DC. Coach Harris has been able to see all of his quarterbacks play. So he knows what talent he's got, who he should ride with in this game, because this is where it's basically for all the marbles. Because you get to this final game, ain't nobody going to fault the defenders for getting to the championship with a backup quarterback, especially with home field advantage. Then you look at the Battlehawks and the Kings. This game, I think, is the one that most people are going to be looking at to have some excitement or some form of intrigue. Because it's really hard to say exactly what's happening. But if we just kind of look back across the season and at our wins and losses, we've got, our season kicked off with the Birmingham Stallions visiting the Kings. And I think most people thought both these teams were good. And I think the Stallions were kind of a favorite going into the season. Then we had the Defenders at the Stallions, at the Battlehawks. And, this game, I think, most people thought was a sign of the season to come, but it didn't end up proving true. The Defenders ended up really turning things around. And then the Renegades at the Gamblers, if they played at the end of the season, odds are the score would be closer, but probably similar outcome. And the fact the Aviators and the Storm were it was as close, kind of a shock. But let's actually take a look at our attendance real quick and look at our totals. 418,000 for the season. Pretty good. That's pretty good attendance for the regular season. If you draw in, one concern I have is one team is more than 1/4 of the total that the league drew in this season. So you want to see these numbers climb. So if we could see, just imagine if each team was sitting at 100,000 fans all season long. Now just imagine 100,000 fans out of each team were sitting at 800,000, maybe even 1 million attendees. Think about what that would bring for the league, and sponsorship, promotion. There would be some massive steps taken. And while the Battlehawks have kind of fallen off this season, and I don't blame them, there's been a lot of changeover for the team. But if they could get back up to 40,000 fans a game, holy cow! Expect the league to really have some serious changes and some serious impacts. But then looking at kind of our lowlights for this season, kind of when was, I guess, the lowest point? That's really going to be right in the middle, which is, I understand why that happens. That's kind of the lull in any season is the middle point. But ultimately, you get into these 41,000, like these 65,000 numbers is what you want each week. And if that could happen, that would be a really good showing. And then when we look at our averages, this is where there is a little bit of concern just on the fact that, we're under 10,000 for, 4 for a majority of the weeks. 6 out of 10 weeks were under 10,000 attendees. Whereas, previously, no, don't get me wrong. San Antonio was sitting at 10,000 pretty much every week. Michigan was sitting at 8 to 9,000 every single week. So, but I think there's a lot to be said about the move that occurred. Like Houston had a struggling fan base or attendance when it was the Roughnecks, when they were playing it. Like it's just been in like constant changeover for the league, and I think this next season will bring a lot of stability, and that will have a major impact. But if we look at the postseason matchup and kind of what we have ahead, um, we've got 4 teams left, and we got 4 good performers left. Though I have concerns about the defenders, and I think any rightful fan would, especially based on the performance against the Storm. But if the Storm make it to the championship, nobody's going to complain. It's deserved. They've had a good team. They got a lot of good talent, and I think it's completely deserved. Then looking at, as I've said, this final game of the playoff or the semifinal round will be quite the interesting matchup. The Kings are really firing on all cylinders. The Battlehawks are, they're a good team. Their defense is very good. Their quarterback position has improved. Their offense is starting to look better, and they'll have home field advantage. And that home field advantage is basically the 12th man. It's an advantage in almost any game. Then looking at, of course, the news kind of the weekend, or I guess the week, was kind of the host location changeover. First it was in Ohio, now it's back in Florida. It's in Daytona Beach now, a couple hours away from Orlando. But ultimately, there will be some form of home field advantage for the Storm, which I do think did arise some concerns across the league. But looking at our playoffs, DC's coming into town. It's not going to be at the home stadium of Orlando, but maybe there's better attendance. They're running a pretty good deal to kind of make some profits out of this new location. Then looking at the Kings versus the Battlehawks, expect that to be a ton. That's going to be an event. Fox's final broadcast, they're going to put some investment in it, as well as the fact it's going to be a good game regardless. But looking at kind of the standings across the season, I think all in all, the teams are in good shape heading into next year. I'd expect there to be some coaching changes going into the offseason, but other than that, the league has really, really grown this season. I think from a fan's perspective, I think you really have a lot to be proud of. They've done a lot. They've really, tried to excel when it comes to the fan experience, both at home and at the stadium. And I think you saw that with the kickoff, concert series that we had, and I expect that to come back for next season as well, because that was a really, really good showing out of the fans. And I do think about how many fans attended just for the concert, which isn't a bad thing, but ultimately, the league has thought up some very innovative ways to draw in some attendance. But this one was a little bit of a shorter stream for us. We'll be looking ahead tomorrow, kind of taking a deeper dive, kind of give you my predictions, of course, for the MVP, for the playoffs, and for the off season. So we'll take a look at exactly, where I think we might be able to expect some moves and what the league really has ahead. But all in all, it's really going to come down to our playoff matchups this week. It should be a great week of football. A lot of time to enjoy the performance of the players, but also to look back and reflect on not only a great season, but a great return of spring football. I think there were a lot of questions heading into the season. You get Repoll coming in. What's going to happen there? Is the league going to falter? Is it going to sidestep? And with all the changes, the reorganization the league experienced, and the lack of communication right in that early stage, the draft was originally supposed to be in October, pushed it back until January. So there was a lot of questions about what this league will have in store, what the future might hold, and whether or not there is an opportunity, to grow this league beyond the 8 teams that it has. And I think so far, under 1 year of the leadership that we've had, I think we're stepping in the right direction. I think the expansion in 2028 is something we can expect, and odds are is it's OKC coming onto the fold, and then we might see another new city, or it's going to be a return to Detroit and the Michigan Panthers. And I think the Michigan Panthers are most likely what we'll see happen. But only time will tell, so we'll have plenty of time to see all that. But in the meantime, we get to enjoy the semifinal round of the UFL playoffs between really four good teams, four really good performers across the league, and I think a lot we'll discover a lot about this league this week. Depending on the Kings' performance, we're going to see whether the future of this league is held by kind of newer talent to the league or whether it is kind of that consistent. So, like, the story of this late Sunday game is going to be, experience of Luis Perez or that new found talent in Chandler Rogers coming out of the showcases. That is a storyline in itself, and I hope the league, develops that, grows on that, because ultimately, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. The league should have a really, really good season for us ahead. But in the meantime, we'll catch you tomorrow. Probably another 9:30, maybe a little later of a stream. Probably going to be a quick one on Saturday, but then we're going to hit it hard on Sunday with a nice pregame show for you, as we normally would. So, given that, please enjoy your Friday night. Be safe out there. Thank you for making us a part of your day. And as always, like, subscribe, put those notifications on, join in the discussion while we have it. And ultimately, thank you again for being a part of this journey through the UFL season in 2026. And we look forward to having you in the journey ahead. So, thank you again. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the football if we don't talk to you. But thank you for the time.